And welcome, everybody, as game number one of the Navy football season gets set to get underway on Monday night. The Mids in prime time, Labor Day night, as they take on the Cougars of BYU. Alongside Joe Miller, I'm Pete Medhurst. Keith Mills and Scott Wyckoff will join us for the Monday night radio broadcast. And Joe, with Notre Dame being taken off of the marquee for the season opener, the Mids really worked quickly to get another national program. BYU answers the call, and two programs going to get a chance to display their wares on opening night, Labor Day night, in front of the entire country. That's the first question to get the elephant in the room out of the way. We've talked to some of the players over the last few days. It's going to be really an eerie environment, but it's almost going to be like two teams scrimmaging on a practice field because there's no crowd there as a bit of a distraction. The only problem is one team's going to win and one team's going to lose, and unlike a scrimmage, they're going to keep the results.
Yeah, I mean, it's the marquee matchup of the weekend. You could make an argument it's the best out-of-conference game all season in college football right now, as the schedule is reported right now at this point in the season. It's probably the marquee matchup of any intersectional rivalry going on between these two teams, even though they haven't played since the late 80s. But, I mean, it's going to be a different atmosphere. It's tough to sort of it's tough to wrap your head around the fact that you're going to have this big game on a Labor Day night, on Monday night. Labor Day night traditionally over the last 10 or 15 years in college football has been really a spot for one of the marquee matchups of the college football opening weekend. So you have that as a backdrop. You have national television audience. You have game day there. I know obviously it's a little bit of a muted experience for game day, but you have this big buildup, but yet you're not going to have anybody in the stands. And it seems a little off. It seems a little weird. And I think, talking to Ivan Jasper earlier this week, he said, look, we don't know how anybody's going to react to this. This is not something that anybody is used to. Obviously, the coaches have talked about trying to self-motivate. The players have to do that. And I guess as a player, you try to, go back to a place where – but here's the difficult thing, Pete. You've been playing in front of people since you were 8 years old. And there's always been people there to support you, whether it's your friends, your family, whatever it is. So it's certainly a unique experience. And I think nobody knows how it's going to play out on the stage this year in college football, how it's going to affect games, how it's going to affect teams, and how it's going to affect our broadcast. I mean, it's going to be a unique experience for all of us, just like this pandemic has been. I mean, we've all sort of had to work our way through it in different ways, and this is this isn't any different. We have to sort of try to figure out the best way to do things, and the players to try to figure out how to get ready and get up for this game. It's so weird to be talking about such a big game, but yet nobody's going to be in attendance to watch the game.
Normally we're going to be saying, let's go down to the sidelines to Keith Mills, except this is going to be a case of let's go see where Keith is now, because he could be in the end zone. He could be in the corner. He could be somewhere up in the stands or something like that. So it's going to be a unique experience for all of us, no question about it. As for the game itself, I mean, look, for Dalen Morris, I mean, you talk about a story of perseverance. This is a young man that has had to sit behind obviously a guy that turned out to be one of the best in the history of the position, yet he's going to be a guy that I think plays the position completely differently from Malcolm Perry. And what he does, Joe, he presents them with tremendous, I think, tendency-breaking options at the quarterback position. This may be the deepest group of wide receivers the Mids have had in a while. And I'm not saying Michael Cooper is going to go out and catch 35 or 40 balls, but I think you have the opportunity to throw on first down. I think, as you and I talked about, Jamel Carruthers' highlight tape coming out of high school, it's a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield. I just think there are a lot more things here at play for Ivan Jasper's playbook if he needs to and chooses to go there.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting to see a new quarterback, and it's exciting to see what the potential of this offense could be with a new guy under center. Look, nobody's going to be able to duplicate the numbers that Malcolm Perry put up. I mean, you're talking about a once in a sort of lifetime season for a guy that runs for over 2,000 yards and passes for over 1,000 yards, and what he was able to do from that quarterback position. And you're not going to ask Dalen to put those numbers up, I mean, it'd be great if he did, but you're not going to ask for those type of numbers. So it's going to be the supporting cast that needs to step up and add their strengths to the offense to help boost all those other numbers back up to where they were last year. So I mean, Dalen, we've seen Dalen in practice. We haven't seen him on the field take a meaningful snap, but and I know that they've been excited about his potential early in his career. It was just a matter of, this is a guy that's making a transition from a shotgun system in high school, trying to learn the triple option offense, but they've always been intrigued by his ability to throw the football. Now, do I think they'll throw the ball a little bit more? Yeah, but I don't think they're going to go crazy. I don't think you're going to see them throwing the football 25 to 35 times. But I will remind you, last year at the beginning of the season, last September, there was talk of, hey, we do need to throw the ball maybe 5 to 10 more times. They wanted that balance between, they said, ideally, we'd love to run, for 200, 250 yards, but also throw for 150 as well. Now, last year they just ran for 350 and threw for about 70 to 80, and they got that number anyway. But the plan last year was to be a little bit more balanced and hope to get that yardage. Certainly they're going to try to run for 300 yards. There's no doubt about that. And if the defense is giving them, they're going to take that. But I do think there is a thought of there being a little bit more balanced. And I think Dalen does give you, as we talked about a bunch last year, those run and shoot looks. I think he's going to give you those opportunities to make the short passing game. And Malcolm was able to, I go back to the Army game, open up a couple plays. We're not talking about 7 to 10 plays, but early in the Kansas State game, early in the Army game, able to make a couple short throws to really change what the defense was doing. And I think that's what you have, that you can maybe throw a little bit early and, on first down a little bit more than you have in the past, and just open things up in that short passing game. I think it could really help this offense if you can get a couple plays. It really does sort of get the defense on their heels if you can complete some first down passes.
Year 2 for the Brian Newberry defense. The defenders we've talked to over the past few days, really excited about what they were able to accomplish last year, but very hungry to be able to do even more this season. And I think and I've said it to everybody I've talked to this week, and, I think in Malcolm's heroics last year, I think the improvement and quality of the defense, I think that storyline kind of got lost a little bit in all of Malcolm's heroics. And as you detailed, I thought throughout the season, analytically, it's one of the best turnarounds of defense in a long time at any level of college football.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to compare the numbers from what they did last year to the previous years. I mean, I've told you this number of times, it's transformative. That's the best word that I have for it. I mean, they completely changed the dynamic. When you talk about going from 10 sacks, they had 10 sacks 2 years ago, to over 30 sacks. That's remarkable. And you talk about the tackles for loss went way up. Obviously, the points per game went way down, and defensively, they were able to do things that we haven't seen a Navy defense do in a long time. And that's get off the field and 3 and outs. I think they ideally would like to cause a little bit more turnovers this year. I think that's one number that, if you ask the coaching staff, that they would like to see increase a little bit. The question is going to be, where are you going to get that pass rush? I think that's the number one question coming in the season for this defense. You don't have Jacob Springer coming off the edge. You have to find that consistent pass rush. Now, I think they would argue and say, well, we can get it from 3 or 4 different guys. We don't need one guy to replace Springer to necessarily get that sack total from where it was last season. But I do think when you look at the defensive numbers and what they need to do this year, if maybe the sack total comes down a little bit, but they can increase those turnovers, as we talked about, get 6 a bunch of times last year, Pete, you can win that way as well. So I think it might be difficult to match some of those sack totals from last season, but I don't ever doubt a Brian Newberry coach defense to be able to get to that point again. But I do think they have the potential, especially with that secondary. When you look, it's as strong as a secondary as I've seen here. I don't think there's much question about that. I mean, the depth there, the skill positions, and when I talk about skill position on the defense, I talk about guys that can turn you over. They've got that in the secondary. And I think you look at that group of guys and say, maybe we could get 5 or 6 more interceptions, and maybe we can lead the defense a little bit more. I think it's a great group, and I think it's the strength of the defense. You have to figure out that nose guard position, certainly there. I think they have some guys they think will work and be able to produce. And there's some talent that played a lot last year on the defensive line. And of course, I haven't even mentioned the all AAC linebacker in the middle of this, Diego Fagot, who is a star and one of the best linebackers we've seen in Annapolis in a long time.
One of the most humble kids you'll ever meet, too. No question about that. On the other side, Zach Wilson wins the quarterback battle. All three guys had gotten starts last year, but Wilson got a predominant amount of the playing time. Obviously, the loss of Matt Bushman is the big storyline in my mind for BYU. I mean, you're talking about this is a guy who's going to be a first or second day draft pick at worst in the upcoming NFL draft. Came back for his senior season. Unfortunately, the Achilles injury is going to cost him this senior season. So a significant weapon at a position that has traditionally given the mids fits. That's really, to me, the big storyline here. Wilson's got plenty of experience at quarterback, so him winning the job doesn't surprise me. But the loss of one of his top targets, if not their most important offensive weapon, is a huge storyline, especially basically a week from the game.
Yeah, I mean, Bushman looked, when you look at all the preseason rankings, one of the top 10 tight ends in the country. To lose a player of that capability is going to be tough for an offense that doesn't have a ton of experience at wide receiver. Now, they have guys that have played and guys that have seen some time on the field, but there's not a guy there that's been targeted 50 to 60 times. And that's what Bushman gave you, is a guy, that safety valve. They really did some interesting things with him offensively too, which obviously, they're going to have a tight end in the lineup and somebody up there, but not of the capability. At least we don't expect the capability of Bushman. Their wide receiving core is young. They played a lot of guys at running back last year. Nobody really necessarily stood out. There's some good runners though. Don't take that away from them. They don't have like maybe the star at running back or wide receiver, but they have really good, solid players on the outside that you look at and say, they have some potential to give you trouble. But to me, you look at Wilson, and he's a guy that has a lot of talent, Pete. I was really impressed the 2 or 3 games I watched leading up to this game. Really impressed with him. He can move. I think that's one of the things you have to be cognizant of going into Monday night, is this guy can scramble. He reminds me he's a little bit taller than Johnny Manziel, but body frame wise and the feet wise, he actually reminds me a little bit of Manziel in the pocket. He can escape some things. He can make some plays downfield. And the thing that I love about him more than anything is he's a very accurate quarterback. So they're going to have their hands full with Wilson. You look at the competition in the AAC this year, a lot of good quarterbacks, and they're playing a really good quarterback here in Zach Wilson. They have a pretty solid offensive line as well, so they've been able to protect him pretty well. But the thing that scares me more than anything is Wilson getting outside of the pocket and making plays with his legs. It's not – when you look at his rushing numbers, it doesn't blow you away, Pete, but if you watch him play, he has that capability on a 3rd down and 9 to make a run, to get, that extra first down, to keep a drive going. Their skill positions are, solid, but I think Wilson is the guy you look at and you have to stop, because he's a pretty accurate quarterback. He can get the ball downfield. And the other key, and I talked to Brian Newberry this week, and, one of the things that sticks out when you watch BYU play is they run a ton of misdirections, or what we would call trick plays. I don't know if they necessarily consider them trick plays because they run so many of them. It's really not a trick. I mean, they run a ton of reverses. I watched a couple games, and I probably saw about 17 reverses in a 3-game span. So, they'll run 4 or 5 what we would consider trick plays a game. So, eye discipline is going to be big for the Navy defense. They've talked about that leading into the game. But that's another area. When they get around the 35, 50-yard line, they like to run some different stuff. They'll put their, as you mentioned, they have 3 quarterbacks. They'll put them in the backfield and maybe sprint one out. So they do some unique stuff on the offensive side of the football field. A lot of misdirection, a lot of reverses, some flea flickers, a little bit of everything offensively. And I think that's where you look at it and say that's another area where you have to be concerned. But to me, it all starts with Zach Wilson. He's a very talented player. He's been banged up. Last year got banged up a little bit. But when he is on, he's a really good quarterback, and he's going to be difficult to stop.
The irony, too, about this season, and, I was on with Bob Beeler in Boise today, and we were actually talking about, the Air Force game because Air Force right now is only playing Army and Navy. When you're playing a team in a game like this, and there's really no consequences for them, there's no league championship ramifications on the line, Joe, they can go for broke. They could go for it on fourth down a ton in this game. And I think those are the kind of things that you don't really plan for until the game actually unfolds and you see it, because without a lot of ramifications, you don't know how many bowl games there are going to be. There's a team that could go for broke against you almost every play and try anything at any time. I think tendencies are thrown out the window in this 2020 football season for the most part, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, it's one of the unique aspects of this 2020 season is, look, Navy, thank God they're in a conference. They have a conference championship to play for. A very attainable goal. A very, we talked about it, every year with head coach Ken Niumatalolo. We talk in the preseason. He says, look, our goals are to win the CIC and win. And now lately it's been to win a division title and win a conference championship. And Navy still has all those goals in front of them. You're right. I mean, for other teams, it is a little bit of a week by week focus for them without any big picture goals really to look at the end of the season. So it's one of those unique aspects of college football in 2020. I'm sure it's going to be talked about a bunch. I mean, we don't know we don't even know what conferences, we think we have an idea right now of what conferences, but there's rumors floating out that people will start in October. I mean, what's that going to look like in January? I have no idea. So we're all sort of living in this day-to-day environment, and it fits right in with the 2020 college football season because, we've got teams that are in the top 25 that aren't planning to play this year. And it's crazy. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like you cannot make a definitive statement about anything right now because things change so quickly. But I do wonder for coaches and for players, and you start the season off slow. What does that mean for you if you're only playing a handful of games? I have no idea, and nobody else does because nobody's ever gone through it either. So it's just 2020, man. I don't know. You can't make any really hard and fast rules about anything right now.
Yeah, no doubt about that. It'll be 8:00 on Monday night, Labor Day night, prime time. Joe, Keith Mills, Scott Wyckoff, and myself will have the call for you. All of our usual local affiliates, WBAL 1090 AM and 101.0 FM in Baltimore, WNAV in Annapolis on 1430 AM and 99.9 FM, 1500 AM. Of course, you can hear that from Maine to Florida, the 50,000-watt flame-throwing good old AM signal there of our friends at Federal News Radio in D.C. And again, 1310 AM in Norfolk, our new affiliate down there for the upcoming season. Great to have those folks aboard as well. Joe, we know we're going to get to do at least one game, so I'll see you on Monday night.
Looking forward to it. I've been waiting for this one for a long time, so I'm glad it's almost here.
All right, that's Joe Miller. I'm Pete Medhurst. We look forward to talking to you Monday night from Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium as the Mids take on BYU. Enjoy the game, everybody.